Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Friday, May 31st. Before we get into the leans today for baseball, we will do a quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up getting a loss with the Warriors in the fourth quarter at Pick'em on Bookmaker. The game went exactly the way that I thought it would for the first three quarters. I thought that Toronto would get off to a good start at home behind some very solid home court advantage. And that's exactly what happened. But unfortunately, Golden State was not able to make up their deficit as they were trailing after three quarters. In terms of the actual pick itself, I thought it was fine. There were a couple of bad breaks, but either or those are expected in basketball. You have the Van Vliet buzzer beater at the end of the shot clock. You had I thought Siakam committed an offensive foul in the last couple of minutes when he completely trucked Draymond Green. It looked like he hit him in the face. But that ended up happening, and then Kyle Lowry, who had 4 points, ends up hitting a dagger 3 at the end of regulation. So that's unfortunate. We got a loss there. However, if you did listen to the player prop lean that I had on Kyle Lowry under 15.5, you got a very easy cash as he only generated 7 points. It happens. Toronto definitely played well. I forgot about the Siakam hook shot as well that banked in. But it happens. I thought that it was a good spot. The Warriors did look good in the beginning of the fourth quarter, but then Leonard and Siakam simply just took over the game, and that's how it worked. Plus, Draymond committed roughly 6 turnovers as he had a triple-double. But either or, I'm not surprised that Toronto ended up pulling that game out. I thought the Warriors would win, but overall, I expect the Warriors to struggle a little bit against Toronto's depth until Kevin Durant comes back. So keep that in mind moving forward. But with that being said, time to dive in to the leans today on the baseball card. In terms of play of the day, there is going to be no play of the day. However, I simply put the Brewers and Pirates game in the title because that is one of my favorite leans. So I will be providing you with that today. But we're going to start out at the top of the card, and we're going to start out with the Giants against the Orioles here in a battle of two of the worst teams in the entire league with Pomeranz versus Cashner. And money's actually come in on San Francisco here as they opened up at roughly minus 110 up to minus 115 in most spots here. Total's been at 9. I actually like the Orioles here. I think that both teams are awful, but Cashner's actually had some good results for the Orioles, and Pomeranz has tended to give up a decent amount of home runs in the last couple of seasons, and that's exactly what you cannot afford to do at Camden Yards. So I will lean to the Orioles there. Moving on, Red Sox and Yankees, I would lean to the Yankees here. I understand why a lot of money's coming on Sale because of the fact that Sale historically has been very solid and that against the Yankees he's done relatively well. But at the same point, do you really trust a 1-6 pitcher at a minus 156 price, especially with the Red Sox bullpen and how they just got destroyed by Cleveland in their last 2 games while the Yankees are on an absolute tear? I know Hap's not great, but he was okay in his last start against the Royals. And in terms of this game, I'd also lean to the over 8.5. I think that both teams will score at least 4 runs, and I don't trust the Red Sox bullpen. So I'll lean to the Yankees and to the over on that one. But overall, I would lean to the Yankees there. Moving on with the Brewers and the Pirates as the game that I mentioned before, one of my favorite leans. I lean to the Brewers here with Chacin and Archer. I know that Archer's a big-name pitcher, but words cannot describe how overrated he actually is and how much of a steal that the Rays got in return for him when they traded him about a year or 2 ago. Archer's 1-5 with a 5.75 ERA, and yet for some reason he's viewed as being a potentially great pitcher. I don't really get it. He's got good stuff, but overall his command is in question, and I don't really like his pitch selection most of the time. He's given up 39 hits in 40.2 innings. That's definitely not a good sign. Chacin's 3-6 with a 4.88 ERA, not great, but Chacin's numbers against the Pirates have actually been decent. And Archer's numbers against the Brewers have not been good in particular. Plus, the Pirates are 10-15 at home, so they're not a good home team at any means. And besides Josh Bell, I really don't think that the Pirates have anybody offensively who is as threatening as, a Yelich. Yelich has some support like Lorenzo Cain and Moustakas, and they have a couple of other weapons, even Aguilar at times. But the Pirates, besides Josh Bell, I don't really see much. Sterling Marte's been underwhelming, and I don't like the Pirates' bullpen either. So for that reason, I'm going to lean to the Brewers here, especially after scoring 11 runs yesterday. I think this Brewers lineup is clicking. I think that they're looking to try to get back into NL Central contention. And even though both starting pitchers have been overvalued this season, I think Chacin has been a little bit more solid than Archer has. And I also like the Brewers bullpen. So if this game ends up turning out to be a slugfest, I trust the Brewers bullpen with Hader to shut it down late. So I will lean to the Brewers there. Yeah, Jamiles, I read that. People thinking Golden State at their best. I mean, there was that stat going on, which is that the Warriors, and I believe it was their last 33 games without Durant, they were 32-1. But at the same point, Draymond Green was pretty much a no-show yesterday. I know he had a triple-double, but Siakam pretty much dropped 30 on his head, and people have argued that Draymond's a top 5 defender in the entire league. So Siakam definitely showed up in his first NBA Finals game. Leonard had a very quiet 20-something. Lowry did nothing, but yet it didn't matter. Danny Green made a couple of threes. Marc Gasol was fantastic. I thought he was the X factor for that team in Game 1. But overall, the game went exactly the way I thought it would. Cousins played 8 minutes. I said he'd get 10, and that's how that worked out. Iguodala did re-injure his hamstring, so keep that in mind moving forward with some rotations. But do I think the Warriors really care about dropping Game 1? No. I think Game 1 meant a lot more to Toronto than it did to Golden State, as Golden State knows that once Durant comes back, they should be able to bounce back nicely. But overall, Golden State looks like they're going to need Durant in order to win, and that's why money's poured in on Toronto for Game 2, as Durant has pretty much been announced as a long shot to play for Game 2, as Coach Steve Kerr said that he probably won't practice before Game 2. So keep that in mind, and if you like the Warriors winning the championship, I'd recommend waiting till after Game 2 and then potentially taking them on the future at plus money after they are down 2-0. Props to Toronto, they showed up, but other than that, I'm going to go back into the baseball leans here. You also have the Twins against the Rays taking place at 7:10 with Berrios versus Stanek. Berrios is great, but I lean to the Rays here. The Rays dropped 14 runs yesterday. The team's rolling. They have the lowest ERA in baseball, and I simply just think that the Rays are on another level at this point in time. Twins have a fantastic record, but they have struggled over the last couple of games. Berrios is solid. I don't like the Twins bullpen, so I would lean to the Rays there at moneyline roughly minus 125. Moving on, you have the Nationals versus the Reds. Money's coming on the Reds here because Molly's been okay in his last couple of starts, but I still lean to the Nationals money line here roughly minus 112, minus 115, depending on where you shop. Corbin's been great, and I simply like the Nationals lineup with Soto, who's caught fire lately, and I just don't like the Reds that much at all. So I would lean to the Nationals there. Moving on, Detroit and Atlanta, you have Turnbull versus Fultonavich. I lean to the over here at 9. Turnbull's been awful in his last couple of starts. Fultonavich had a pretty solid start against he had a pretty solid start in his last start. But at the same point, he's struggled overall this season, and Atlanta's bullpen is nothing to write home about. So I take the over 9 there. I think that both bullpens are atrocious, and I think that you'll see a decent amount of runs after the 6th inning. So I'd lean to the over on that one. Moving on, you have the Royals and the Rangers with Jurado versus Duffy. Total's been bet down from 10.5 to 10. I don't really care. I'd lean to the over there. I don't like either pitcher. And in Texas, you expect a decent amount of runs here in the warm months in the end of May. So I would lean to the over there. I think that both teams should score 5 runs. So I expect this game to turn into a slugfest, and I think that this game will end somewhere in the realm of 8-6. So I'd lean to the over on that one. Moving on, you have the Indians and the White Sox. I'm actually going to lean to the under here with Bauer and Covey. I know that I recommended the over yesterday, which ended up winning as both pitchers struggled. The White Sox scored 7 runs. Covey's not great by any means. Bauer's pretty good. But simply, I just think 10 runs is too high here between these two teams. I think this game will end up 5-3, 5-4. I think 10 runs is a little bit high, and I would lean to the under there because Bauer has the ability to shut down the White Sox by himself. And Covey's been okay. He's got some decent stuff. Nothing really to write home about, but I think that 10 runs is too high, so I'd lean to the under there. Moving on, you have the Cubs and the Cardinals. Lean to the over 9 here with Darvish and Mikolas. Mikolas and Darvish have not been great this season, and both teams still have pretty solid lineups. So I would lean to the over. I wouldn't be surprised to see Baez and Schwarber, as well as Ozuna and Goldschmidt play well. So I simply think there will be a lot of runs here, and I'd lean to the over 9 in that one. Moving on, you have the Rockies versus Toronto. Rockies are a huge favorite, roughly minus 270. Total's been bet up from 11.5 to 12. In terms of this game, don't really have any thoughts. I'd lean to the under, actually. I understand the concept of games at 12 because of the fact that Coors Field. But Marquez is a very solid pitcher. Edwin Jackson's a journeyman in the MLB, but he is decent. Not saying he's going to pitch well here, but Toronto's offense has also struggled lately, so I would lean to the under 12. I think this game will end up somewhere in the realm of, I'd say, 7-4, 7-3. I just think that 12 is too high, and I think that's also a decent odds of getting a push. So I'd lean to the under there because I don't see much value on the over. Moving on, you have the Mets and the Diamondbacks with Wheeler and Duplantier on the mound. Totals in bet down from 9.5 to 9, and lean to the over there. Duplantier is an unknown, but he's still relatively young, and Wheeler has been inconsistent this season. Mets offense got completely shut down by Ryu yesterday and got shut out, but it's in Arizona in Chase Field. Tend to see a decent amount of runs there. Arizona plays well offensively there. And the Mets still have a decent lineup with Pete Alonso and co. So for me, I'd lean to the over 9 there. Moving on, you have Peacock versus Fires between the Astros and the A's. I lean to the Astros here, roughly minus 120. Fires I've bet against before, and he ended up throwing a no-hitter. But overall this season, he's been very underwhelming. And Peacock has been pretty good so far in the starting lineup. I know that Correa for the Astros was just placed on the IL with a fractured rib. But you still have Bregman, you still have Altuve, you still have some very solid pieces. I know that Springer's also injured, so the Astros have been bit by the injury bug lately. But I still like the Astros. Astros still have the lowest opposing on base percentage in the entire league in terms of pitchers, and their bullpen is still top 2 in the league, according to ERA. So I would lean to the Astros there, so I'll lean there on the money line. Moving on, you have the Marlins versus the Padres with Smith versus Lucchesi. Caleb Smith, very solid pitcher, was not great in his last start, but he's still very solid. Lucchesi's been pretty good. Totals at 7 here. In terms of value, I lean to the first 5 under. I don't like either of these teams' bullpens, but I do like the starters here, and I think that this will be a low-scoring game at Petco. I can see this going into the 6th inning at roughly 2-1. So I'd personally lean to the I'd lean to the Marlins' first 5 money line, and I'd lean to the under in the first 5 here. Simply because I don't think the Padres should be a minus 160-something favorite with Smith on the mound for the Marlins. Marlins are an awful team, but Smith makes them competitive because I expect him to give up roughly 1 run in the first 5 innings. So I think there is value on the Marlins in the first 5 there. So I will lean on that one. Moving on, you have the Angels versus the Mariners with Skaggs versus Leak. And money's come in on the Angels, bet up from roughly minus 120 to minus 133. I lean to the Angels there. Skaggs is okay. Leak's been decent, but the Angels' offense looked pretty good over the last couple of games, and I think that will continue. So I will lean to the over 9.5, and I will lean to the Angels there. And you can potentially parlay the 2 of them for decent value. And moving on, you have the Dodgers versus the Phillies with Arrieta versus Maeda. Totals been bet up from 8.5 to 9, and money has stayed steadily in the Dodgers, roughly minus 160. Small bit of money coming in on the Phillies, but nothing much to write home about. In terms of this game, I lean to the Phillies. Very small lean, just because I don't think Arrieta should be a plus 140 favorite, and I think that there is value on the Phillies there. But the main leans that I have for the baseball card today, leaning to the Brewers as the main one, which is why I put that in the title. I'd also lean to the Astros here on the money line, and I'd also lean to the where am I looking here? I'd also lean to the over in the Cubs game as my main 3 leans, but my main lean is going to be on the Brewers at a minus 120 money line on 5 dimes because I think that they will get the job done here as the Pirates have struggled at home. But a couple of other announcements, just a quick reminder of our sponsor at PointsBet, as they're a New Jersey sportsbook online, very solid, and they have a couple of promos, which I will be sharing as I've shared over the last couple of weeks. Up to 2 risk-free bets of up to $1,000. So if you ended up betting on the Warriors money line last night for $1,000, you get your money back. So you don't have to worry about trying to make up your bankroll in the upcoming next few days. But you get up to 2 of those. NBA playoff deal, if you place a money line bet, your team's up after 3 quarters, you get paid out instantly. So if you had Toronto on the money line, although they won the game anyway, you didn't have to worry about sweating it out in the 4th quarter with the Warriors and how they're known to come from behind in those games. And you also have the NHL playoff deal, which is that if the team you bet on is up by 2 goals at any point, you win. So you don't have to worry about sweating it out in a potential choke job scenario. So that's something to keep in mind. But another announcement, as I said before yesterday, I will be starting a new thing on the channel, basically a betting basics show. I'm just going to go over some tutorials and some terminology for betting. Like, for example, what's a money line, what's a spread? I know most of you know what that is, but sports betting is becoming increasingly popular, and some of the novice bettors aren't really familiar with the terms, and they're also getting intimidated by some of the concepts. So I will be going over that on a separate show on this one. But in terms, Felix, you asked what I'm personally betting on. I'm going to be betting on the Brewers money line. I'll probably be betting on the Astros. I'll probably also be betting on the over on the Cubs. But I'm also, WNBA, some people follow, some people don't. I'll be betting on the Aces tonight. But in terms of my main bet, I'll be looking at the Brewers money line there. But with that being said, that's going to do it for this installment of Scott Selections here for Friday, May 31st. Stay tuned for the tennis video coming out later. With that being said, go to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.